on 531 VI.
It is Friday the 19th of September, 6 minutes past 7 o'clock. William Terite in the hot seat with you through until 9 a.m. It's good to have your company. It's been a big week in the Pacific. Papua New Guinea has just marked 50 years of independence, a milestone that saw leaders from across the region gather in Port Moresby. Among them, New Zealand's Foreign Affairs Minister Winston Peters, who's back now this morning to talk to us about that and much more. Morena to you. Thank you very much for your time.
Good morning.
Look, what did you make of the 50th celebrations? Why was it important for New Zealand to be there at this time?
Well, we're a Pacific country. It's been 50 years since they became independent. I think they've had 17 different governments in that time because it sometimes has seen a rapid change of governments. But for a country with well over 800 languages and with the difficult, steep topography they've got, 1.7 times New Zealand in size, in land area. It's a major achievement that they've pulled us all the way through, not as Prime Minister Marape said perfectly, but, you know, it would have been something that back in the 1975, when they first became independent in September of that year, a lot of cynics would have not thought was possible. And I think that's something that we should congratulate them for.
PNG as well, perhaps like many Pacific Island nations, sits at that crossroad of big power competition in the Pacific. Did you sense any of that tension while you were there, or was it mere just celebrations?
Well, it was really more about celebrations. I didn't sense that tension whilst we were there. Clearly, we're in a good space with PNG. We've done enormous work in the issue of Bougainville. New Zealand has been remembered and is currently engaged with the former Governor-General of New Zealand in mediation and consultation with them. They appreciate the fact that we have been a long-time reliable partner, and they said so.
Look, just want to get your take on those Stats NZ figures that came out. It shows the economy shrank nearly 1% in the June quarter. How worried should we be?
Well, I don't know if you recall the 23 election, but they were all saying how they could fix it, excepting one party was saying, no, it's far, far worse than that. And I hate to say I told you so, but we were right. We said so all through the 23 campaign. It's going to take a whole lot longer to turn this around than we think, because there's been a massive underestimation of how bad the economy was. There was massive borrowings like there was no tomorrow. The level of inflation was going to 7.5, 7.6% and rising. We had a whole lot of what you might have called aftermath of the lockdowns, far worse than most countries, and we still haven't got out of it. So it's of no surprise to us. And I'm saying to some economists and some experts, well, how come you didn't pick it in the first place when you had the country believe what you thought was the optimistic circumstances, when there were no grounds for it? So I think this is the worst. I think we'll turn it around from here.
Do you still have confidence in the Finance Minister Nicola Willis? I see Mr. Neoliberalism himself, Sir Roger Douglas, came out of the archives and said that she should resign. What do you make of those calls?
If I had that record, I would not open my mouth. Do you remember no, you're too young to remember the global financial crash of 1987.
Yeah.
It's in October. And in this crash, and it underscores the economy and the way it was being run at that time, by, dare I say, Roger Douglas as the then Minister of Finance. There's a share market crash around the world. Of the world's worst 10, we had 6. Of the world's worst 4, we had all 4. That's the legacy. And I think sometimes, like, there are too many former people from politics who are poking their nose in every day saying what they would do. My question is to them was, Ian, how did you go when you were running that ship? And how offline, now how off beam, and how off target it was. So please don't tell us that when the share market crash was happening in that measure, the worst in the world for us, and when we were selling so many of our assets which we'd built up, you know, over 80, 60 years, flogging the assets off that our ancestors built, trying to fund the current fiscal problems, it showed you how failed they were in their strategy. We're still paying the price for that.
Here's a question for you, and I guess, you know, I know ministers, you have your portfolios, you stick to your lanes. How much influence do you have at the cabinet table in the sense of, can you help steer Nicola Willis in her portfolios, or is that kind of overhandling?
Well, you have to stick to your lane, otherwise the thing can't work. If you get all sorts of self-appointed experts getting into someone else's lane, it's fractious, disappointing, and it doesn't help. It's, if you're the Wing Street quarter, you can't have the prop trying to play that part of the game. He's not going to be successful, or she's not going to be successful because they haven't got any speed, and probably not the mental agility that Wing Street quarters have as well. And it happens also in politics.
What do you say to critics that are like, you're part of this government and yet you're, in some ways not connecting yourself to the economic management of this government? What do you make of that?
Well, my job is to make sure that foreign affairs is successful to the best of our ability and with a very, 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 probably best ever qualified team. That's happening. I got the job in railways last December, and we're turning things around dramatically. I don't know if you realise, but we've got 2 new ferries coming. We're going to save $2 billion plus of the last wasted plans they have. We opened the 3rd line yesterday in Auckland. We're going to be opening the line all the way to Marsden Point off the main trunk near Oakley going up north. We're going to take the rail line all the way to Aotearoa. We're turning it around right in front of your face. And then in terms of racing, well, it's back now, going to be a very successful industry, heading possibly to $2.5 billion of contribution to the New Zealand economy. I stick to my lane, but do I have views? As I do, but again, it doesn't help if we're all beating our gums off when someone is in charge of the job.
Sure. With all of that in mind, I mean, Pacific families, they're feeling the brunt of rising job losses, the cost of living pressures. They work in the industries where, of course, unemployment is rising. What do you make of that perspective?
Look, there was a famous Prime Minister of the UK who had certain, what we would call right-wing theories, but in a very short time she learnt about the deficiencies of the extremes of those theories. She came to learn as Prime Minister, her name was Maggie Thatcher.
Oh, of course.
Coming into her 2nd term, that it's a whole lot easier to keep a business going than to try and start a new one. And I say that that's what we should be trying to do. There are key components of the problem. They are extraordinary, outrageous, in my view, energy prices, unjustified, but they're all part of a former energy strategy that governments have accepted and which New Zealand First does not. We say that we should be like Saudi Arabia in this context. If I'm buying fuel in Saudi Arabia, I don't pay the world price for it. And if you're buying energy in this country, we shouldn't pay the world price for it either. We should be paying the New Zealand price with a cutting-edge advantage for New Zealand business and New Zealand homes. That's where we've gone wrong, over and over again. But you know something? One party's been saying that, and we're saying it real loud right now, that we should be given far greater vote support, and we will fix it. And what's my evidence for that? Well, look at Shane Jones out in his portfolios. Is his portfolio a success? Well, the very things that are turning things around in a lot of the country are owed to the strategy of New Zealand First regional growth, the provincial growth fund, and we're out there and it's happening day after day after day, particularly on the forgotten West Coast. Yes, I know you'll have all the critics and say this and this and this, but the answer is, all right, show me your record of performance in the past. Well, we've got one, and they haven't.
Because you brought up Maggie Thatcher, I've got to ask, I mean, something that this coalition government often gets tainted with in media headlines and from critics is that you're installing privatisation by stealth. What do you make of that?
Well, our job is to stop that. No doubts, no ifs, no maybes. Our job is to stop that, because the reality is we follow better the Singaporean view. Take the country's assets, make sure that you massively ensure that the added value of all those assets go to your workers, your people, your economy, and remove their management from politicians and put it in the hands of business and what you might call other experts, like the Temasek model in Singapore. And that's our view. We want to see New Zealand's ownership of assets grow in our name, but we are very clear. We don't want politicians who can't run the school tuck shop running them. You got that?
Yeah. Why do you think people are scared of the term nationalism? It's in the conversation at the moment over in the UK with reform at the moment. But why do you think people here particularly don't like the idea of nationalism?
Yeah, but in the UK they love the idea of nationalism. That's why reform is going past the 35%, and the other parties are in the under 30% or under 20. This is extraordinary. And they like it in New Zealand as well. But the trouble is, but people who claim to be New Zealanders or work in New Zealand interests are not nationalists, they're globalists. There's nothing wrong with the word nationalism. It's like, what's my first responsibility as a politician? Well, it's the safety and security of New Zealanders, not the world, but of New Zealanders. And then saying the next happens in the cities, and then the next thing that happens has got to be for your family. It's security, it's a nationalistic interest. And they try to damn that because their failed global policies don't work. Then you have to condemn the ones that will work, and the theory that will work is called patriotism and nationalism. And it's not the last refuge of a scoundrel, it should be the first refuge of someone who gets up, as they're doing in local government right now. They're not getting up in local government saying, I want to be somebody in Auckland representing you in Wellington. No, they're saying, I'll be good for you in Auckland. When it comes to the nation, these MPs and parties should be saying, I'm here to represent your interests, that is in New Zealand. But they're actually saying, actually, I'm a globalist. I'm more concerned about Gaza, I'm more concerned about Palestine, I'm concerned about everything else, but I don't give a hoot about you. Look at the Greens right now, sitting there with their keffers on in Parliament. When was the last time they raised an issue of the environment? The Greens cause is lost, sadly. See what I mean? And then you got the Party Maori. When was the last time they talked about a young Maori being brutalised, or Maori woman being brutalised by some of their husbands, which is happening far too often, or their men folk? We all know it's true. And it's a bit of a case of, position, heal thyself. Before you start complaining about somebody else, fix your own backyard up. And that's what we say. That's national.
Just a final, very quick point on that. You arguably, in some ways, work with the biggest globalist in politics in New Zealand in the sense of free trade, open markets, all that jazz. I'm talking, of course, about David Seymour. Is it difficult, your two ideologies?
Well, the reality is the ideology I've got has a proven history of working. It has a proven history of working. You show me where neoliberalism has worked anywhere in the world, and you can't.
No.
You cannot show me where it's worked anywhere in the world. But I can show where our theories work. They're working in Croatia, they're working in Poland right now, they're working in Argentina right now. They're working in Singapore, they're working in Ireland. These ideas of, incentivized growth, your country first, every cent of value of milk, for example, should be going to our economy before anybody else gets the product. Infant formula, we should be the world leader in infant formula. We're losing opportunities because these people have a lack of vision, and they won't get out of the way when they're not good enough to do the job.
Just very quickly, Shane Jones elected Deputy New Zealand First Leader. Is this contingency planning?
I just knew that everybody's going to say that. We had a reflection. We said, actually, it's funny now, we haven't had a vote for the Deputy Leader. And so I put it on the order paper. And at the time it was coming, we forgot that we had to go to PNG for the PNG celebration. So it happened last week, and everybody sort of thought that a normal event like that means something else. Is it contingency planning? Everything that we do is contingency planning, but we only have still plan one. That's to win the next election.
With that said, though, is he perhaps the next in line should the day come where Winston wants to step down? I mean, what keeps you motivated to want to carry on? I mean, I'm still young, but there are days where I'm like, oh boy, do I have to go in the office?
Well, I'll tell you, go and ask your grandfather and say, what's it like in an old people's home, granddad or grandmother? And it's boring. It's far more exciting. Well, it is. Can you imagine getting up saying, what am I going to do today? I think I might go along at 10 o'clock for coffee. I might have a game of cards. Well, life's for living. That's the reality of it all. I met somebody a long time ago now, but he went on to be 100 years old in the US Senate. His name was Strom Thurmond. Then I had the good fortune to spend some time with this man who came back. He'd been 21 years Prime Minister of the country. He came back on a return plan and became the Prime Minister again when he was 93. And now he's just turning 100, and he's bouncing around Malaysia, still giving them advice. And the best advice I ever got when I was about 10 years ago from a former serious media personality was, Winston, don't act your age. It's the best advice I ever got.
Fair enough. Look, not to... I would...
You've got to think young. You've got to
Yeah.
think young.
Totally. Look, I don't want to... I would love to end it there, but it'd be remiss of me not to ask. In terms of Gaza, what's the plan? What can you tell us? I mean, and what do you make of some Pacific Island nations continuing to align themselves with Israel?
Well, I make of that's their democratic choice. But there was a poll in New Zealand recently. 60% are very dubious about the idea of the state of Palestine. That's what the RNZ poll said. And you know how RNZ is not really an independent source anymore. But if their poll is saying 60% of New Zealanders are doubtful about the thing, then we've got to start paying attention. Now, here's the thing. We're all caught by the appalling tragedy. But it's still breathtaking. It's still breathtaking, isn't it? Here we are after all this misery, and they won't give the hostages back. You see, I can't understand why anyone would think that people like that should be remotely engaged in the future, because we are saying Hamas has got to put down its weapons, it's got to leave, it's got to be out of there, it cannot be part of the future. There's enormous support for the ordinary innocent people of Palestine, and that's the tragedy. It's the leadership there that has been 2005 had a chance to run a proper sound country, but it turned to enormous terrorism. That's what really happened. So we have, as I say, run out of patience with all sides a long time ago. What New Zealand is saying to us, everybody now, is we're going off to a major conference in New York before the UN matter happens next week, and we'll hear the update from everybody. I spoke, for example, to the new Secretary of Foreign Minister for the UK last night. We're talking to everybody, getting an update and bringing ourselves not into line, but bringing ourselves to know all the circumstances. We'll let you know when we know all the circumstances. But whatever it is, there's going to be no satisfactory outcome at the moment, excepting this. We want and will not resile from the two-state solution. And that's what we're going to do our best as a country to do. And for all those people shouting out, we are doing this and we're guilty of that, who's found the money to help out in Gaza over the last few years? And who's found the resources? Well, it's people like this government that has done all that. And they just put that aside because they want to, in the main, not look at the hard-edged problem of trying to solve the issue, but to virtue signal. And it's quite the virtue signaling. You know, while it's happening, in the Yemen, there's absolute tragedy going on. Sudan, absolute tragedy going on. And Myanmar, absolute tragedy going on, magnified by millions and millions more. And they don't care because it's not centre of the news stories anymore. That's sad.
Mr. Peters, there are a few people I could talk to about nationalism, neoliberalism, all of that. Thank you very much for your time. I love it. You have a good rest of your day.
Thank you very much.
That is our